Well, they won't be shouting this from the rooftops. Let's begin. Now, obviously, with everything going on at the moment, I guess a few things are going to slip by without anyone noticing. One of those things, I'm guessing, is this about driving, but what's happening? Well, it seems, doesn't it, that ever since Rachel Reeves has come out and said there's a £22 billion black hole, that they're trying to find any excuse or anything they can to raise tax on. And I say that because according to this article, it says that drivers are warned to brace for fuel tax rise under Labour. But just how much is that going to be? Well, remember, when the Conservatives were in power, they froze fuel tax for who knows how many years and also decreased it by 5p. During the obviously cost of living crisis, and all that now seems to change. Because it says that ending the 5p fuel duty cut and realigning it with inflation could bring in apparently an extra £2.5 billion. But if you think about it, that's just the start, isn't it? Because it will more than likely rise with each and every year. And that could turn into, I don't know, 8p or 12p, 15p, 20p, 25p as the years pass. And that will no doubtly cause a massive hike to people's fuel bills. And it just makes me wonder if this is because they'll no doubt also push forward the 2035 ban on new petrol and diesel cars to 2030, thereby making fuel more expensive and making people think, maybe we should buy that EV a little bit sooner than we thought. And admittedly, I could be wrong. But it goes on and says that motorists already burdened with surging car insurance costs and fuel prices would be even hit harder if Labour ends the 14-year freeze on fuel duty. The AA said it was concerned that today's costs could be made worse under any fuel duty increase in October. And former Chancellor Jeremy Hunt, who by the way looks more or less of a hunt with a silent C than Rachel Reeves is more than likely going to be, froze the levy on petrol for 14 consecutive years in his spring budget. He also extended the 5p a litre cut introduced in March 2022 for another 12 months. And of course, Luke Bossett, therefore, from the AA warned that if the Chancellor Rachel Reeves reverses this 5p cut as well, it will hit drivers, businesses and the economy hard, which is something that the Chancellor should be aware of, really, you'd think, wouldn't you? No doubt, of course, they'll put up some other tax to offset any future cuts. The thing is, though, if they clawed back the £11.6 billion from Ed Miliband's overseas climate emergency or whatever it is that they want to spend it on, none of this surely would need to happen, would it? But maybe, just maybe, that's probably a bit too much sense for the government, especially as there's some sort of eco-drive at the minute, though, along with the setting up of their GB Energy, which will more than likely cost us taxpayers quite a bit in general, eh? And coincidentally, that £300 saving, from what I remember that Keir Starmer and whoever else was mentioning during the election campaign, they've gone very quiet on that, haven't they? And I've just left out that significant figure. And get this, it comes after Sir Keir Starmer refused to rule out unfreezing fuel duty during the election campaign. So he's even warned us about this, but still people voted for the guy. I mean, admittedly, it was about 20% of the countries. Surely, if anything, you'd at least like to think he'll rethink that, eh? But he was quizzed on the subject in June and he told GB News, I'll be very straight with you, I'm not going to write 5 years worth of budget 2 or 3 weeks before the election. And according to official forecasts, the government would raise £2.5 billion in 25 to 26 alone by reversing the 5p cut and updating the fuel duty with inflation. And also, quite worryingly, since September 2021, the average pump price of petrol has exceeded the pre-pandemic record of 142.48 pence a litre almost every month, according to the AA. And the motoring organisation said that this was due to soaring oil costs and a weak pound. Petrol prices are affected by the exchange rate between the pound and the dollar because crude oil is apparently traded in dollars, which I guess kind of sucks for us, eh? Higher retailer margins, though, they apparently also had an impact, and the Competitors and Markets Authority had said that a weak competition between supermarkets added £1.6 billion to drivers' bills in 2023. Due to the huge increase in the company's fuel margins, Labour's commitment to net zero is also adding to drivers' costs in the short term. Well, surely now, hopefully, they'll set up this pump watch that we've heard about, and therefore any profiteering will hopefully be brought to an end, and that can only be a good thing for us drivers. And whilst admittedly they do seem to be shoving EVs in our faces, I don't think this is the right way to go about trying to make us switch to them. That should be up to us and our time when we want to do so, not the government. It also says on top of this, drivers face soaring insurance costs, and a typical driver apparently now pays £622 a year in car insurance premiums according to the Association of British Insurers. Although apparently this represents the first drop in premiums in 2 years, the figure is still up 21% year on year, which is just shocking, isn't it? I mean, yeah, I don't know about you, but from what I remember, my pay didn't exactly go up 21%. If anything, I think that went up 20 pence above the minimum wage. Because let's face it, I'm not a junior doctor, am I? So therefore, Labour is not bending over to the rest of the country. Let's be honest, it does make me wonder now how many more companies or people are going to start striking because of Labour's very generous offer to the junior doctors, eh? Which of course no doubt us taxpayers will all be paying for. And of course all the UAPs that unfortunately are now not going to get their winter fuel allowance, which I think is disgraceful that they cut that in general, eh? But what have the government said about all this? Well, the Treasury spokesperson, never give their name, do they, says following the spending order, the Chancellor has been clear that difficult decisions lie ahead on spending, welfare and tax to fix the foundations of our economy and address the £22 billion black hole in the public finances left by the last government. And decisions on how to do that will be taken at the budget on the round. Well, if you think about it, from what I've heard, that a lot of money for Labour's future policies are also in this black hole. I guess they just don't really want to mention that much. And also the £11.6 billion I was telling you about earlier. But quite worryingly though, I'm guessing that Labour, if anything, will more than likely stick to that narrative and just tax us all as much as they can, rather than using good old common sense, eh?